Welcome back to another edition of the King's Roundtable. All right, and we are back once again with another edition of the Turnbuckle Bros. Well, should I say the King's? Sorry, Steve. Roundtable. And with us again is some usual offenders. Of course, we have David Avens from Jersey is back again. Welcome back, David. Tyler Enter coming to us from California. Odie, Baud, Kenobi, Chris Baum, wonderful writer from Deadspin.com. And with us once again is the man himself behind Imagine Sports, Down in Line Online, Mr. Dayne Myers, the Michigan Wolverines fan, who is quite pleased with his team's performance. Big victory over Ohio State this past weekend. So here we are again, everybody. Welcome back to the King's Roundtable. Oh, I forgot. The Blue Chipper, the Day Tripper, the Lime Ripper, the King of Diamond Mine Online, the terrorizer of the message boards, the antagonist, the villain, the heel, the king, Steve Mutsu. All right. So
that's self-proclaimed, right?
I mean, yes, well, obviously self-proclaimed, but results don't lie. And Steve is in yet another World Series again this year in our league that I did so
all
terribly.
All I do is win.
All he does is win.
Man, who is
whatever?
That's it.
A lot of good guys. Circle Change, Larry Mack, a lot of good players in this league. Basically, a bunch of good players, and then me. That's who's in this.
Step up.
And so, one thing we debate just about on every King's Roundtable, Dame, is what is better, the Classic game or SSG? And I hear that you have some thoughts on it, and you'd like to talk about it. So we all argue this all the time. Dayne, what's better and why, SSG or Classic?
Well, I don't know which is better. Whatever is better is whatever the particular customer likes better. We started with we thought about this, when we were first creating the game. I thought about going with a single season right from the start. But given that I thought the stats/ESPN customers were the easy pickings, was one reason I thought, well, we got to go the career way because I want to get those guys because I know we can take those customers. The second was I thought that if you think about it, a player in Classic is Willie Mays or Babe Ruth, right? That's one player. In single season, it's kind of like each year of a player is a player. When you think from a computer coding standpoint, they really are units. So it's almost like, so instead of having one Barry Bond, you're trying to choose between one Barry Bonds. You want Barry Bonds? In the Classic game, you got to choose between, do I want Barry Bonds or do I want Ted Williams? Or do I want to spend that money in center field and have Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle? If you go single season, then you have to decide, not only do I want Barry Bonds or Ted Williams, or do I want Willie Mays, or do I want, Ty Cobb or Mickey Mantle? Now you have to decide which version of those do I want. So that decision of A versus B versus C versus D becomes A to the times 8, B times 20, C times 22. And so now you're not choosing between 4 players or 5 players, or 6 players. You're choosing between probably over 100. And so I thought that's overwhelming. In hindsight, I don't think that's necessarily true because I think so many people are used to growing up now with single season mentality, especially in fantasy sports. So anyway, and as time, so we went with the Classic because one, we were, like I said, we were targeting the the stats and ESPN customer base initially. And second, I just thought it was easier to learn. It's easier for a newcomer to come in and start to learn how to play because there are fewer choices. The choices aren't overwhelming. You're trying to choose from a player pool of, say, 5,000. We have about, I don't know, it's like 5,000 in the player pool, 6,000 in the Classic player pool versus literally like 80,000 choices in the single season. but then years later, there was another issue too. It was like database stuff. It was, you have to have a much larger database to accommodate single season than you do. And then when we first started, imagine, database costs were higher, but over time, server costs and database costs came down. And so it's like, okay, now we can offer the single season. So it's like, well, let's just give everybody a choice. And so you can have whatever you want. And that's kind of been our theme all along since we started the company. We just look at all the options you have in setting up a league. The idea was, hey, let's just give people all the choices we can possibly give them and let them play the way they want. And so I don't have a position on whether one is better than the other. I'm more curious about what other people think, what the customers think. About our existing customers, we're not going to change it. We're not going to take away. If you notice, I don't think we've ever taken something away, with the exception of the basketball game, but that's a different story.
I love the basketball game.
I love the basketball game too.
I love the basketball game so much. It was fun.
But we own the underlying simulation for baseball. We did not own the underlying simulation for basketball. We licensed it, and that was an issue we could not control. Yeah. So, so anyway, man, I miss basketball, and I've tried to get the guy to, change his mind and come on, we can still do this, and we just never got there. So anyway, but so if you notice, we just keep giving. We add choices so that people can play however they want, and to each his or her own. But I'm curious what other people think. But that's why I was intrigued by the thread that Steve started on the message board, and because I know you guys have been talking about it on past Turnbuckle Brothers podcast, the greatest podcast there is. And
you damn right.
There we go. So given that, I thought it would be interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested in what people think.
Well, we're not really debating which one's better. We're debating which one's harder, like which one takes more skill to be good at. Like that is what we've been debating.
What's your take on that, Dayne?
My take is I think somebody in in that thread posted that it depended on the league setup, and I can't remember who made the comment, but I thought that was the right answer, which is single season was really designed for a limited pool situation. And if you want it to be its most accurate, you would play only one season, 1975 or, 1933 or 2012. And you would limit your player pool to just that player pool, and you'd play the era of play of that year, and you'd only use parks in that season. You're going to get the most statistically accurate results if you do that. That's one. Second, your decisions are a lot easier, right? You only have so many players to choose from. And so I think it's true that the effort required when you say hard, hard can be defined as intellectually difficult, or it can be time difficult, like time. How much time does it take you? I think the bigger the player pool in single season, the more time it takes if you want to optimize everything. If you just want to have fun, I don't think it takes any more effort than Classic. But if you're trying to win, I think, and the player pool is large, then to optimize it, you don't have any limitations on things, because you can game the system, if you want to call it that. I don't know if that's a right term or not, but you can game the system by, there are some players who, for one season they had weird reverse splits. And, the Classic was, before we put in some limits, Tony Gwynn Jr. had one season where he had like 370 plate appearances, but only like 17 of them were left-handed, but he happened to hit like 400 in those 17 plate appearances. So if you don't have some kind of limitations on the platoon splits, that's you can just abuse that all day long. So, but if you limit the player pool and you create some limitations on those kind of players, aberrational seasons, then I think, a single season isn't that much more difficult than Classic. But if everything's unlimited and all bets are off, I think it's harder to optimize. It takes more time and effort to optimize single season. I don't think brain power wise, skill wise, it takes more. It's harder to play either one. That's my position.
I think Dave might be completely wrong here. Like totally backwards on the whole thing. Like if you're just picking from the
channeling my
giant,
wife? Is this
perhaps. But if you're just picking from the whole giant player pool in the SSG, that's super easy to make a team. Anybody can do it. It's super easy. It's when you're playing like most people do one season, and you get these weird player pools, and you still got to make a good team, and everybody else wants those players too. That's when it gets hard. And not only that, but you have to manage the playing time, which you don't have to do at all in the other game. And you also have to worry about next season and the season after that. If I make a move, does it even matter to me next season or not, or does it matter a lot? Like this, I have to look 5 years down the road. Like every year I'm playing, I'm not just making decisions based on just that one league. There's a lot more into it.
About you've got a limited player pool and you're trying to optimize your team, but everyone else is trying to do the same thing. That's true in Classic as well if you play a limited player pool.
But the Classic players are all their whole career. None of them are crazy. None of them are weird. There's nothing insane.
Yeah, because you average out all those.
Right. Yeah, but in the player pool in a single season league, there's all kinds of nutty stuff going on. It's a lot harder to make a good team. You can't just. I think the player pool is harder to sort through.
I think progression with keepers is what makes SSG really meaty. If you don't have that, if you're only playing for the particular season, then I agree with Dayne. It doesn't take any more brain power, perhaps even a little bit less than Classic. But if you need to be planning years in advance, then yes, it is a more sophisticated game, though perhaps we can get in, my beef is that managing it is less like managing a baseball team, but it is more sophisticated.
To be clear, my comments earlier about comparing the two was on the assumption of a single league. I wasn't thinking about progressions and keepers and things like that. I think that's the beauty. That's the beauty of SS. You can play progressions and keepers in Classic. People do it all the time.
We definitely have keepers in standard or Classic format.
Right. This might be a stupid question, but how often do the single season salaries change?
Never.
Never.
Well, they have a couple of times when they change the formula.
So that seems to me a big difference then, because I think one of the keys to succeeding, you're going to have to find value in both games, single season and Classic. But in Classic, the way that the salaries move around all the time, you have a lot of terrible values and a lot of excellent values. I've never played single season, so I don't know. Do you get that same spread in single season?
No.
I think you get players who are usable with each other, but you don't get the same kind of swings that you do in Classic.
So that to me seems like a point that makes Classic more difficult.
I didn't even catch that clearly, or something. I don't know what you mean. Say that again, would you?
So in Classic, you've got a lot of players who are just terrible values because they were used a ton in the previous pricing cycle. Then you got a lot of players who are outstanding values who just, for whatever reason, their salary has fallen way below their production. And in building a team in Classic, you really need to sort through those. You don't need to be completely optimal to succeed, but you also don't want to have you don't want to overpay for players. And it sounds like if the salaries don't change that often in single season, that's less of an issue. Players seem, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like players' salaries are kind of around their production level.
Right. See,
the players are worse and weirder, and they don't work as good. They're just bad. In the Classic game, you don't get like a guy who's a good player. You should be using him because he has 35 home runs and a 900 OPS, but he's poor at everything else. Everything.
Yeah,
I'm definitely good if you played a limited player pool, you definitely could. There's no reason you can't have a limited player pool.
How many times in the Classic game do you see somebody with an error rating of 319 or something weird like that? Doesn't happen. It's just the player pool is easier to deal with. I don't think you guys are really thinking about the players you have to pick through and how
But
weird and
But
different it
I
is.
think you're
Steve,
underestimating.
I won the first SSG league I ever played. It was one of those Charles leagues. It was like one of those Charles special events leagues, right? It was the rookies who have thrown no hitters. So you have to have his team and the team he pitched against. So that's as limited a pool as you can get, right? And you have all kinds of like, these are like mostly bad teams. Like they're not all bad, but like you have like maybe one decent team and the other team's like below average, right? So you're gonna have pools all over the place. And it's like, I don't know. I won that league. And then my second league I won, it was the franchise double decade league, where I had the Philadelphia A's for 1920, 1939, right? And I won 100 games in that league. I lost World Series. And that's like actually prompted me. I made a thread on the board. I said, I don't actually understand where my edge in this game comes from, because I just feel like my strategy here is I'm picking good players, and I just play them. Like I felt like it was not that much deeper than that, and like I was just doing a better job. So that league I've been in now 4 leagues of that, right? So like the 1920 to 39 A's, I have all of Jimmy Fox and Lefty Grove and Mickey Cochran. The next cycle I have nobody. It's the 40 to 59 A's when they moved to Kansas City, right? So 0 pennant winning teams, 0 Hall of Famers, and I still won my division, right? And then the next cycle was when they moved to Oakland and they had better teams, and I won my division there. And the current league is 80 to 99, and I'm on pace for 112 wins. And I will say that I probably make more moves than anyone else in all these leagues. So if you want to say that it's harder from the aspect of putting in more effort.
Yes, that's what I've been saying.
Yes, that's true. But I don't think that
it does mean more effort and harder, because you can't, if you're not putting in the work, it's not getting done and you're not going to win.
Well,
you have to do it.
From a competitive standpoint, I don't think the people who play SSG are necessarily better than the people who play anything else.
More effort means more effort.
We're not really saying that. We're just saying that which game is harder and which one is easier. Like,
it
okay,
depends on what you mean by harder.
This team I made this video about, it's not doing that great. It's like 500 or something.
So I think the previous thing you said, Steve, does have some relevance. There's a certain kind of owner who won't do well in SSG with a limited pool, or not a limited pool. And that's the folks who go by rules of thumb, like never take a catcher with a PB rating over 5, or third baseman with who isn't VG or X or whatever. Because you're right, those rules of thumb can be really useful in narrowing a pool, and you'll find good players narrowing it the way you want. But it's really the total package that matters. If somebody is has a PB rating of 8, but they have all sorts of other stuff that makes them valuable, and if you have a way of measuring that, then fine. That the fact that the players aren't weird isn't going to hurt you. Or if you just trust IS's salaries and see, IS says this player is worth so many dollars per inning pitched or so many dollars per plate appearance, and you trust that, you're not going to do badly. But it won't. But it's not good for the players who go by these simplified rules of thumb.
And I just want to clarify what I was saying. I'm not saying Classic's harder. I'm just saying that they've got. I think it's easy to underestimate how far behind you can fall if you don't know how to value players well in Classic, because you can go really, really wrong by just trusting the current salaries, right? Yep. And like, we know not to do that, but I think a lot of new players. I mean, I play in standard leagues, and you see a lot of players who are doing things that people who have been here for a while would never do.
Yeah, I have a couple leagues going where like I just have brutal division. I'm only playing with like Ofink and Alan Hertzberg and Philip Parker and Slager, people like 3 or 4 guys like this in 2 guys in my division and a couple other guys in the league. And their teams are so tight. Like they're not wasting a single dollar on their rosters. All right. They're going to have like 5 of the top 100 values in a game minimum, probably more like 8 to 10. And like everyone else is like, it's just a super solid value, right? And if you're not like really like attuned to like what the meta is and how the draft go, like you're not going to beat guys like that like very often. Like trust me, I don't think I've ever beaten Phil Parker in a league, honestly.
It's like in the last pricing cycle, right? Just knowing that like someone like Billy Werber, if you want him, you're going to have to take him in the 1st to 4th round. Maybe is like very unintuitive to a new player. I think like most new players put your highest salary guys first.
Yeah.
Knowing that this guy's $2 million, but he's worth about $6 million, so take him first.
I'm going to chime in here for a minute. I've never played the Classic game, ever. I've only played SSG. And hearing all of these experts that we have on the show talk about this all the time that know way more about all that stuff than I ever will. Hearing you guys talk about the comparisons between the two, I learn a lot about, and I listen to everything you guys say. I feel like if I went and played Standard right now, I would do better. And it would feel easier to me just based off of how I could manage, how I don't have to worry about appearances and innings and all these things. I feel like it would be easier for me to manage my team. And I want to know what Dayne would say.
Yeah, but you wouldn't win. You wouldn't win.
Well, let me throw this one example at you guys first. I got that all right-handed team I made the video about, and I need that team to do good. Like I can't have that, right? So it's really not doing that good. I think it's 500 or something. But there's nothing I can do about it. I made a plan, and that's fucking that. It's not like the SSG. I can do all this shit. I don't lose any money when I cash somebody, and I can do whatever I want.
It's
I
less
can work
forgiving and right,
and I can work and get myself a championship no matter what in the SSG. I will get it done. But this team here, I just got to sit back and watch and hope it turns out. There's nothing I can do.
It's
I
less
made a plan.
forgiving.
If I break the plan, I'll be like everybody else and doing something dumb. I made a plan. I'm sticking to it.
Right. And
there's nothing I can do but watch.
If you buy
watch it go the fucking down the shitter. You know what I mean?
Mistake,
I don't like that. I don't like watching my team flounder around 500. I can't do nothing. I want to win. And the SSG, I would be doing something right now. It's okay. I made this damn team, right? I made that damn video. Yeah, it was a dumb idea, but I did it. And so I needed to do good, but I haven't done anything. But this other team I got going on that I had to, I bet I made 100 transactions in between while I watch this other team do nothing. So there's nothing I can do about it because it's easy mode and there's nothing for me to do. I want hard mode.
Cashman signs a player. He's stuck with that player. You want to say, "Oh, I can sign a player and change my mind at any time during."
Yeah, because I'm trying to win. I don't want to watch myself lose. That sucks.
Well, and so
somebody scored 17
so
runs.
So what you're saying is you want it to be easy.
It's
you want to be able to make bad decisions and not have real consequences.
That is not what I'm saying.
So what this sounds like to me is when you're trying to decide, okay, not which is harder, but which is going to be more fun for any individual player. It's what do you enjoy spending your time with on the game. I really like putting a roster together at the beginning of the season, and then like I watch almost all my games. Not from every team. I run too many teams, but like every day I'm watching several games, and like I find that really fun to watch the games. If I was playing SSG, I probably would have to spend a lot of that time managing plate appearances and innings.
Yeah, and lineups and things. I make one lineup a year in the Classic game. I make one lineup because I made the best lineup I could make. I can't make a better fucking lineup.
Well, if I
can that's my goddamn lineup. So
I change my lineup.
There's no reason for me to do anything else. But when I made that first lineup, that was the best lineup. That's it. I'm done. I sit there
every time
162.
I maintain 4 lineups. primary catcher versus righty and lefty, backup
do that.
catcher versus
That's
righty
what
and
I've got
lefty.
too.
I do
And
it 4
every
times
time-
too.
And every time
When
I
I'm
have an
done.
injury, I make adjustments to all 4 of those lineups, keeping a record of what the base state is so that when the injury is over, I can set them back the way they were.
I even set my lineup so I don't have to do that. Like it does it for me. It's a super easy mode.
Dude,
No, it doesn't do
I
it
have
right.
teams with
It
like,
does do
when I
it for you. You can get the right guy to come in to your lineup the way you want it to.
Yeah, but he
Just
won't
set it in there
necessarily
right.
bat where you want him to.
Right.
He
He
might
won't
not
bat
bat
right
where you
on
want
him.
him to, but
when I have Martin Diego on, I have 18 lineups. You know?
that's the only time in
Easily
Classic
18
that it
lineups.
counts. That's when it's hard. Is
Yeah.
when you've got a whole team of guys that pitch and bat.
Yeah.
That's when it's tough.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Interesting.
easy mode.
Dane wants to chime in. Dane.
Okay.
I have a question that I think I'm going to reframe the debate. Let's imagine that let's imagine that we were, Tyler liked it, that we were starting all over. It's back to day one, and we're going to start Diamond Mine online again. And there's only one option, Classic or single season. Which should we choose?
You should choose what you did because you had to take the player base. Are you saying if that don't count,
No, I'm saying today.
No, he means today.
Okay. then you take the single season for sure.
If
Wow.
single season were regressed to the mean so that you're not having flukes, I might go with single season. I'm not sure. But given that single season has players hitting 400 or hitting 150 when they're both 275 hitters and you know it, I'll go with Classic.
Isn't it using the exact same simulation? How could that make any difference?
It's the question. It's a question of who the player is. Is the player his stats for that year, or is the player how good they were? Because 300 plate appearances or even 700 plate appearances doesn't really tell you how good.
Oh, I see
player
what you're
was.
saying. I see.
And
What you're saying.
when I draft a player, I want it to be based on how good they were, not how lucky they were that in a particular season.
Well, the counter argument to that would be some customers, when people would say, well, that year, that's how good they were. I want how good they were that year.
That
Baseball's
year,
always
that's how
full
well
of
they performed. And if a customer says, and I want them to perform that well this year, I can respect that. It's not my taste. If the player says that's how good they were, not how well they performed, but how talented they were, then the customer is simply wrong. But on the other hand, you still want their money, so you want to accommodate them.
I'm all for like, Dusty Rhodes. It's like slugged 700 in 1954 and was the best pinch hitter in history or something. Those are fun. Those are fun seasons, I think.
I didn't know the American Dream played in the majors. Oh, that's awesome. American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour. Dane, how does it make you feel to have all these guys in such a passionate debate about your game? I've seen the look. I've been watching you. The looks on your face are priceless.
Well, to me, it's it's not just. I mean, goes back before I was involved. I mean, Tom Tippett created the original software, obviously, and that the PC crowd is just as passionate. And that's where we're trying to build the apps in a way that appeals to both audiences. Or kind of think of it as almost like a 4-square matrix. There's PC versus online, multiplayer versus single player, and single season versus career. There's all these different flavors, and we're going to see if we can thread the needle and make everybody happy. TBD, right? But the one thing I always wrestle with is this, what do you want to present from, if you're marketing it to new customers, then what do you want to present first? Do you want to put, hey, try this game first? If you're doing that, that then begs the question, I think, of which one do you want to put forth as your, here's the starter game. And I always had just assumed Classic was easier from both the time standpoint and easier to get going and learn the game. But that thread Steve put up there and a few other discussions that have happened over the last year or so have made me question that and made me go, maybe it's not true. I mean, there are new, especially because the Classic has a market-based salary system.
I was going to say, if you get rid of the market-based salary system, if players in Classic were priced the same way they were in SSG, Classic would definitely be easier.
Well, the difference.
Yes,
in SSG,
I actually didn't think about that. What you guys are saying about the price, that does make a difference.
But please don't do that. Please don't go away from the market base.
Hey, Dayne, why don't you put their old salary next to their salary so newbies can see it? You know what I mean? And they'll say, "Oh, he's dropping. Oh, he's way overpriced. Whatever." You know, they'll be able to get.
That is a great idea, actually.
I agree.
Yeah, that's why.
You know what?
That's why.
You know why SSG
That's
might
why
be
I
better?
got the crown right here.
You know why SSG might be better? It's because like you can't really death spiral in SSG.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's another good point.
That's a very good point.
So for new players, they'll be like, "Oh, you know, Babe Ruth is hitting 150 after 8 games. I'm going to get rid of him," which is horrible.
Somebody can
On the other hand, that's
player
going to make it
doing
really hard for players to understand the game because, okay, churning won't cost you. You can do it in your first team. You could do it in your 100th team. But if you're doing it because you believe, oh, after 30 plate appearances, Ruth is only hitting 230, that means that there's something about the coding that means he stinks. You're just not going to get the game.
Everybody talks about churning, but churning really isn't a viable strategy because you can't win in the playoffs. Do you know what I mean? You can get to the playoffs, but you can't win.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I'm just saying that it's less. I was trying to say this when you were going on your endless rant, Steve.
Which one?
But the thing with SSG is it's way more forgiving if you make a mistake or if you change. You're like, oh, I don't know why I bought this guy. Like, I like this other guy better. You know what I mean?
And you made that point to combine what you just said, Chris, with what Steve said earlier. If you're sitting with a team in Classic and it's crap, or it's doing like 500 and you're halfway through the season and there's not much you can do unless you death spiral or unless you do something like that. And so then the question becomes, is it better? Well, major league general managers, if you want to get down the realism argument, they can't go, it's like if you've got a contract with, what was his name? The guy, the Orioles first baseman, Chris Davis.
Yeah.
You got that, man. That's an arbitrary. You ain't cutting him and getting 75% back. I mean, so there's it's not even possible to.
But there's no players that bad either.
You can solve.
You know what I mean?
That.
You're not gonna get a player that
players that bad.
Not for their salary. You won't pay that much for them.
If you have more upgrade money available, if you have more upgrade money available, and you can't take loans or the interest on loans is higher, then you can get that. Then you will still allow players to improve mid-season, and you will have reason for players to be more involved throughout the season. Addressing weaknesses.
Well, yeah, that's why we do it. I mean, that to me was the brilliance. I think it was Bill James who put that in the original.
Right. But what I'm saying is the 15% interest is on loans may be too low. Maybe there shouldn't even be loans, because if you're just trying to make the playoffs, the optimal strategy is to take a loan for the full amount within the first third of the season or so. And then you don't have any more money and you just watch the team go. If you can't take a loan and you're getting that money, and it's not just $2 million a week, it's $5 million a week, then players are really going to be involved thinking about how they can improve their team.
Yeah.
I have always been a big fan of the leagues that have higher incomes because you don't feel powerless if your team gets off to a bad start. You still have hope. And have you ever considered upping the income for Classic? Yeah, not only the income but the salary cap as well. Every time we float we try to float in that trial balloon on the message boards, the wailing and gnashing of teeth makes me go run and hide.
I really wouldn't want it to go up. If
the salary cap shouldn't go up, but the weekly income should, because you said, that increases strategy.
Yeah.
And
I'm for the
makes the game better.
I'd be in favor of higher weekly income.
Well, I think that's a great. Let's put that on the Santa list, and somebody needs to float that on the message boards, and let's see how people react, because I think that's an
I
interesting
actually really like the Charles income system. Do y'all know what that is?
Mm-mm.
It's he uses it in those leagues. It's like it starts out small and it gets big, and it goes like 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 8 million, and then like down again to like
I
4
think
million, 3 million, 2 million.
you also want to be careful, though, not to turn a standard league into like a de facto high cap league, because a lot of people don't like high cap.
I agree. I hate high cap.
I do too. I don't have a problem with people who like it, but it's
I do
definitely
too.
not
You
for
know,
me.
I'm gonna not name names, right? But I really
Name them. Drop
what's
them.
worse?
Drop them usernames in here.
Go ahead, drop it.
The people who only play high cap leagues and then like talk about your standard league strategies. I'm just like, oh, like this pitcher isn't usable in high cap leagues. I'm like, dude, I have Alan Bennis, who is 900,000, who's like 12-6 on my first place team. Like you're talking about, no, he's not going to be competitive in a league where you're platooning Sammy Sosa with Charlie Keller. These are totally different universes. Like your comment is not relevant to like my team. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, I love the current structure, but I don't know.
I mean, 100 is a nice round number, but I wish all the players cost 10% more, because then 100 million would get you an average major league team.
Yeah,
cool,
I think 100 million is a major league team.
It's about a pennant winning team, right? 100 million is roughly an average pennant winning team. That's how I always thought of it.
No, I think
that's
it's
not,
better.
you can't use that as a analogy, because how many major league teams have, pre-arbitration players, pre-free agency players who are, I don't know who was a good candidate. How about Trout when he was in his second year? He was getting paid like $500,000.
I don't think Chris is talking about how much money teams really spend, but what kind of team that money will get you in NIS.
Right, where it's like you might have 2 Hall of Famers and a couple good players and some like league average players, right?
But like we don't have to play any bad defenders. You can, but you basically never have to play a fair or poor defender.
That's pool size, not price.
Right. I guess that's true.
Yep, that's true.
I think a good takeaway from this, and a good way to kind of wrap up the heated debate about SSG.
I haven't gotten nobody's answered my question about if we were starting all over, would you want it to be? Should it be classic? And well, let me ask the question 2 ways. Is it better for? Would you want it more to be classic, and or single season, and also, what do you think would be better for the business? If we were going to try to optimize the number of customers in the community, would you think that it should be one or the other, or both?
All right, well, let's go around the horn and answer Dayne's
It is a round
question.
table, so let's go around the table.
Let's go around the table, and we'll start with the Lee May Ripper.
I don't see why we can't have both. I mean, I like the SSG better, but these guys like Classic better. So
well, no, both is. I don't think both is an option. I don't think when you mark
pick one.
Okay, if I have to pick one, I'm going SSG. It's just the more dynamic, better game. DvD. Way bigger player pool, way better.
For me, Classic, and if you can't mix and match aspects, I'd still go Classic. But if you can take some aspects of one game and some aspects of the other, I think that would be better yet. I'm not a fan of the SSG financial model, not just for me, but for anybody. But
why is that?
Like the cashing in players, well, okay, it's the financial model and it's the IP limits, but you can't have the IP limits. I mean, you can't get rid of them, but they also detract from realism, detract from managerial realism. They increase statistical realism.
That's a good point.
That is a good point.
So I believe that there are ways to thoroughly rework single season, so that in some ways it's a lot more like Classic right from the get-go in its structure. And I think that would be better than either for new players. But if you got to have one or the other as they exist now, Classic.
Tyler, I think I know your take on it already, but go ahead, spill it.
Well, I wouldn't want to get rid of either. I think it's, I mean, we all already have an extremely niche hobby, so criticizing people for having a different view of that niche hobby is kind of weird.
It's not about criticizing.
No,
we're looking at it from a business perspective, from Dayne's eyes. He wants feedback on what would be what's going to attract more new users to the site.
As a relatively new player, I'm pretty sure I don't even know if I would have liked the game if I immediately jumped in and had to start managing plate appearances and innings. When I hear stuff about, well, I had to bat Mark McGwire 9th because he doesn't have a lot of plate appearances in this season. That's
the way it goes. You got to do that sometimes.
But that's not why I like baseball. That seems weird to me, and I think that would have been an immediate turnoff.
Those are good points.
Baud, good points.
Yeah,
but it's kind of funny then, because every other competitor we have does single season only.
What's that?
Every competitor, everybody who's ever done a game like this, ever.
Oh,
single season.
Well, not the predecessors of this game.
Right, not the predecessors of this game, but every other.
Games. Yeah.
Every whether it's other competitors we're not going to name here, the or just the computer games and everything, video games, everything that's ever been done is pretty much all based on single season.
Well, we're an outlier. I'm going to bring up a point that no one else did, which is that the Classic game has Negro League players and SSG doesn't, and that's probably one of the best features of your game. Is that it?
That's true.
That you have to give Charles a lot of credit for what he did. 15 years ago, coding all these guys, and you go in a game, and I there are complaints, but Josh Gibson is a monster. He's what you would think he should be, or Oscar Charleston and Pop Wood. So I think those guys, the big names, are all really well represented, I think, and that's one of the major selling points about this particular game and company that you have. So
these guys are making good points.
I would go for that.
Well, what if we could? Well, the new, there's a lot more data now available for the Negro League players than there was when we started. So we're looking at whether or not there's enough data to bring some of the players into single season.
That would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic.
I just think
it's going to be really hard because their stats are crazy.
Yeah. And it's it's not like people. Yeah, it's tough. People haven't grown up with knowing, you know what I mean? There are people who know that, well,
maybe the people who play this game did, though.
Not yet.
That's tough, but it's because everyone knows Ted Williams hit 406 one year, right? They're like, oh yeah, I mean, the year Ted Williams hit 406 in 1941, right? But I don't
2030, maybe they will know, but they don't now.
Yeah, I don't know if people know that Willie Wells hit 420 with 23 home runs in 1922 or something like that.
Yeah, but you know what? Ted Williams, you never get a Ted Williams that hit 406 in Classic.
Because of the $100 million cap.
No.
Well, and because he's just not going to hit 406.
He's just not that good. He's not that good.
He's not that good.
We had a Gorman Thomas hit 69
He would be better
if
in a lower cap because the competition would be worse. Pitchers,
sure, but he's not. His coding is an average of his career, not the one season where he hit 406.
I think my point. Everybody's making good points.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm about to meet these guys. I put my crown on.
You
guys have all been officially knighted.
Third DvD. Sir Tyler. Forget that. Nah. Don't get it.
So the folks who want replay leagues support all these other businesses. The folks who want a managerial sim for baseball support your business? And do you want to stay in this niche, which you fulfill much better than anybody else does, which is why I'm here and not there? Or do you want to be one more entrant in what looks to be a bigger pool, but I'm not sure?
Here's my take on it. And this is from full, I'm kind of trying to tap into Dame's mindset for his feedback that he wants right now from a business perspective. All right. And this is from somebody who just learns about the classic side of the game from all you guys who know everything about it all the time. Even with Tyler being as new as he is, super smart, knowledgeable guy already. Just comes up with great ideas and everything. Here's how I look at it. So SSG is obviously what DvD is saying a lot. There's aspects that aren't in real baseball that kind of come into your managerial, roles, whatnot. So customer facing new users, I would say start with the classic game because it's more closely aligned to reality. And as those classic players evolve and do more things on the site, then those are the players that move into SSG because there's different aspects of the game. And so I think Diamond Mine should maybe focus on the classic, get those guys on that. And then once those guys play that for a while, they move into, there's some different stuff to SSG where, I got to manage plate appearances. I got to do this. There's, different strategies and stuff involved. That's a good evolving, evolvement, if that's a word, I just made it up, but of a player and in the game, you start here and then because both of these things, the takeaway from this is both of these games are highly customizable, right? It depends on how the leagues are set up. That is a big thing that comes up. There's all kinds of rules and caps and all these different versions and types of leagues and customizable things in both versions of the game. So, there's there's thousands of different ways you can play these leagues, right? But you start here, you get, your everyday just up, I've heard a lot about fantasy baseball, but I haven't really played it. I like it a lot. I like stats. I like this. I want to give this a try. You market that. You start here, and then those people will then evolve into SSGs and custom leagues and things like that. And then because Dayne's site does things that these other sites don't, but you grab them here and then you show them, we do all this other great stuff too. I think that's who you target. I think that's what you do. I think that's the focus.
Well, and I wonder too.
We didn't hear from Mr. Baud about his preference. If he were answering that question, he just said, the Negro League thing was a great.
Oh well, yeah, I like to play off of what Matt said here. I'm thinking of I remember reading about those other games and Baseball Digest and stuff when I was a kid. It was always presented as, how would Babe Ruth hit against Sandy Koufax? Play this game and find out. So I think that is the way you appeal to people, and the fact that you can make it, how would Barry Bonds hit against Satchel Paige? That's a pretty unique thing that you're offering that no one else is. But yeah, I would pick Classic because of the Negro League players.
You could evolve more as a player starting at Classic, I think. And that's what you want. You want not just somebody who's going to come in and play one league and never play again. You want a user that comes like all these guys and all of us who starts playing and never stops. Playing for years. You've got the everybody except for the exception for me and Tyler here. These guys have been playing for years, decades almost. I'm not just on your side, but forever. Keeping them there.
Well,
That's just my take on it.
Something that was said about SSG earlier makes me think, I don't know now, because I bet you it happens a lot that people play one league and Classic, Death Spiral, don't understand why the Death Spiral didn't work, and then leave. And I don't know, I just think both have to be offered, because I could see people sticking around longer if death spiraling doesn't kill you in SSG. So
You should make
I mean, it
that
doesn't exist in
spiraling
SSG.
as dummy proof as possible, like we talked about a couple episodes ago. To where,
Yeah.
like, when their cap gets low, their salary total needs to change a color or something. We're like, oh shit,
Right.
I'm spending too much money. And also, you could do that with salaries, like how a stock market is. You know how like the ones that are going up are a different color, and the ones that are going down are like a different color.
Yeah.
You could just see that when you search the players.
The
I like
players
that
who
idea.
death spiral are largely going to be the same players who completely mismanage IP and PA.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But you know what I
need
mean,
to
though? When you're looking at the catalog and you're searching for a second baseman, all of their names are a different color because some of them are way more priced when they started off, and some of them are way down. So
And
you
I
can
think
just
there has to
tell.
be a disclaimer too that like just because somebody like there's different ways to value players, right? Like when I look at the reset prices, I don't know, I don't agree with a lot of them.
All
but-
it would tell you is if their salary's moving up or down, and that's it.
Right.
That's all it would tell you. It wouldn't
Yes.
be right for every single player, but for the most part, it would help.
yeah,
if
it
there
would
are
definitely
only 3
help.
weeks left in SSG, and you're signing a player who has 600 plate appearances, you should get the same sort of warning that if you're cashing in an expensive player
Yeah.
in Classic.
Yeah.
Hey, Dane, is one of the biggest problems you guys have is like people play their first league and they're just terrible, and they're like, "Fuck, this game sucks," because I drafted all these guys and Willie McGee is a Gold Glover and I know it, and I want him leading off and all that, and then they lose. Is that like, and they quit? Is that the biggest problem?
I would say that if we lose if you look at we have these analytics, right, that show where a customer flows through and where do we if the 2 points where we most lose people are, one, they don't even finish drafting that first team even if they're on a free credit, and so it's almost like you can tell they get overwhelmed. It's the equivalent of like Amazon and all these other online retailers. They track assiduously how many people abandon their carts, their shopping carts. How they didn't go through with the purchase even after they clicked on some items and put them in the cart, and they measure that stuff 6 ways to Sunday. And for us, so they're looking at abandoned carts. For us, it's there's 2 points where they start drafting and they don't get past 3 or 4 players, and they stop. They just never even finish. And I think they're overwhelmed. It's just too hard. It seems too hard. The second is, like you said, Steve, they get their asses kicked in the first time they played, typically because they make a lot of the mistakes everybody knows, and they don't have the fortitude. They say, "Oh, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore." Some of them will go on and it's interesting. A user who's been playing for 6 years called the customer support line, and we almost never get calls. We ask everybody to use email anyway, and everybody does. So we rarely get phone calls, but he was exasperated because he'd never been in the playoffs after 6 years of playing on the site. And so he wanted advice, and we gave him advice we don't want to teach people how to play, because that's not right, for us to say, hey, you should, but we point them to, hey, look, you should read this article, don't make these mistakes, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. And it's like if you go on the advice board now, it's not just, we've got there's one, you can click on a collection of articles, including Mr. King here, his infamous article from way back. And that one we curate a bunch of articles there, and then all the tipping point articles that Charles writes for the newsletter are in there. I said, if you read that reference, you should read the reference section. If you read the reference section, you read these articles, you will kick ass. That's all we got to tell you. Just follow what everybody else here this has all been written up.
I think I got an idea to solve all these 2 problems in one. With your free credit, you don't draft a team. You don't draft players and make a team. You draft a team with that free credit. It's already made. You just look through that and you.
That is what's going to happen with the first version of the app. You're just going to pick a team.
So I was almost thinking like you could give them right now. I know there's those options. You can pick there's those auto formed teams. Like you can pick like a Yankees team or a Blue Jays team or whatever. What if you also said like, here are several possible team structures. Like, do you want to emphasize pitching? Use this one. Do you want to emphasize defense? Use this one or something. And just have a few.
Idea.
It's a great idea. If you draft in a team with your free credit, it's not going to be as bad as the one you draft, probably.
And like you
You're-
could probably get some good owners to even put those teams together. Like
That's a
they
great
don't
idea.
need to be.
And maybe the teams have notes that go with them, like, do this, do that. This guy's, let's look a little paragraph.
Sounds like a future Turnbuckle video to me.
I think so. And the interesting thing is, but one of the best things about what we have is once someone plays the second or third league, it's kind of like you're with us forever, my friend.
Yeah, I believe that.
Customer retention. I was talking about this with somebody who's a venture capitalist, and we weren't taking any venture capital money, but we is just a guy I know from past business stuff, and I told him our retention numbers, and his jaw dropped, and he was like, "My God, that's incredible!" And I said, our customer loyalty is off the charts. The problem is it's a hard game to learn, so getting new customers is the hard part. That's why I'm trying to figure out easier ways to get newbies in, so that we can, I mean, we're doing business wise, we're doing fine, but I mean, it's in the long run, people get old and unfortunately die or will play, so we can't rely on our current customer base forever. So it's like, and I think a lot about how do we get the new generation who they're too impatient to sit through a real Major League Baseball game, let alone take the time to draft a team. So it's kind of like, well, how do we? But I mean, we're never gonna grab that, and we're not gonna. We have, there are some, teens and 20-somethings playing our game, but let's face it, a vast majority of our customers are over 30. It's certainly over 40, and definitely over 30. So, in fact, I think the average age of our customer base is in the 40s, maybe even 50s.
Well, I think that's who your market naturally is, especially in the classic game. It's people whose favorite players have retired.
So like people who are 20 now might not play, but maybe
I got to tell you, I've had a lot of. I've wanted to be. I wasn't playing in a league. I was kind of like observing it because we can, drop in and check out leagues and stuff through the customer portal and customer support system. And there's some guys doing dynasty leagues where they're using the most recent single season as the basis of their league. And so they're playing 20. They'll be drafting their 2021 season soon. And I'm fascinated by that. And the PC customers play that a lot. And so I've talked to a few of them because it seemed they're thinking, like you said, Steve, they're thinking ahead. They're drafting like, a few seasons ago, one of them drafted Wander Franco before we even had ever coded him. And it's like, because he's thinking ahead. I'm like, I want this guy when he's going to be playing. And now he's happy, as can be, I'm sure. So it's, you know what I mean? And they play with an unlimited cap. So you don't have to worry about, are you trading off, okay, Trout got injured, he didn't play enough season, oh, well, whatever. But, you can still, get Wander Franco and, you can put together a kick-ass team. But my point is there's so many different ways to play, but the idea is, I think you're right in that we want to have those customers who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And I liken that to the TV shows, it seems like, 50s shows were popular, like Happy Days went in the 1970s. Why? Because those people they were teens then, now they're in their 30s, they want to watch TV. They're watching their childhood or teen years on TV. And it's the same thing. That 70s show was popular in the 90s and, on and on. And I think we're the same thing. That's a great point. But I don't want to just appeal to that. It's like, we'd like to have something that I think has a little more broad appeal, but maybe not. Maybe we should just be happy with what we are.
How are you going to code Shohei Ohtani?
You know what? You'll find out next month.
Okay.
Oh,
fair enough. I am curious. So
I don't do the coding. I'm not involved in that.
Yeah, it just appeared like there's been discussions on the board. I'd be interested if any of you guys disagree, but like I can't see how his value would be perfectly captured in the game the way the rules are. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, you're right. I think we probably should look at. I don't know. There was that debate in the message board too about, should we look at that rule about can somebody play in the field, more than, it has to take 2 days off. That's the way we have it set now. I don't know what he did this season. I didn't look closely enough at that to see what he actually did.
There's something baked in. It may not be that solidly baked in, but it's so much we take for granted. Players without a starting pitcher rating, if they do start for any reason, they can go significantly longer in a game than they would if they were relieving. The worse than poor starter is still pitching more than a reliever. If you got rid of that, if you said that anybody who doesn't have a starting pitching rating, fine, he's coming in as a reliever, even if he's starting the game, then you could get rid of the rule that says that you can't start, that you can't play in the field the next 2 days, and then players like Ohtani and Negro League players could have their real value. How
would that let you get rid of that other?
Yeah, I don't understand
that restriction is there. Well, for starting pitchers, it doesn't. I'm sorry, but yeah, you're right. It's only connected for relievers.
Yeah, I think Ohtani is pretty unique, though. I don't know.
Like, it seems weird if we were to allow. Like, I was kind of persuaded by the argument that people made on that debate on the message boards that, like, Babe Ruth never pitched and hit consistently within the same season. It just was I think he refused to do it.
1918 to some extent, 1919.
Yeah, 18 and 19 he did.
Okay, but he didn't like
even
it.
Then he doesn't have like 660 plate appearances and 40 starts. So
yeah,
he was hungover too much.
Well, he's clearly like you look at his pitching stats. He's clearly on fast decline by 1919.
Yeah,
like his strikeout rate is like it's like one of the worst in the league, and
where it had been the best or one of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, well, was that because he was pitching, his ability was declining, or because he was hitting more, playing in the field more, and he just couldn't handle the workload of playing both in the field and pitching at the same time?
And he also, I don't know, like maybe he just got disinterested.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing as, I mean,
sure.
It's why do we have pitchers not hit in the American League and probably soon in the National League too? It's like you want to focus on, it's hard to be both. It's hard to do both. And Ohtani's a unicorn, and Babe Ruth and Martin Dihigo, but other than that, who's really done it in history? So you get one player a generation who can do it.
Well, as the old adage goes, if you're not measuring, you're not managing. And it's all about growth. And this has been one hellacious debate, maybe the most fiery debate we have had on the Kings Roundtable so far, at just over an hour of at each other's throats. I love it. I love it.
Oh, didn't seem
this
that.
has been
it didn't seem that bad to me.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Saturday, that was a war. And
I literally knighted these guys, dude. I knighted these guys. This was like a kumbaya.
I know. It was crazy. The King actually agreed with a lot of things you guys said. That never happens.
These guys taught me something today. That was pretty good. That was good. Not bad.
So I want to thank all you guys. Yep. So you guys might not know, if you're still watching the show, we want to know what you think about it. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on the message boards. What do you guys think? Which is better, SSG or the classic game? Tell us. Let's get into this.
We're not asking you about better. This is what's harder.
Yeah. Well, okay. What's harder? What do you think? What do you think Dayne should market to? Tell us. Let us know. Argue with us about it. The King's ready to argue at all times. 24 hours a day. He's
I
looking
like
for an
fighting.
argument.
I like.
And don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button.
Hit the subscribe button. Like this video. Share it with your friends. Dane, do you want a job? You're hired. Dane is a turnbuckle. Official.
He's a turnbuckler.
Dane is a turnbuckler.
Look at this guy like he can knight somebody. What's going on here? Don't be doing that.
Hey, I'm the host. I can do it.
And I want to say one closing comment, if I may, to all of the members of the community who are Ohio State fans. I mean, I'm sorry it was that bad, and it hurt that bad. But we still love you, and you're still welcome in the Imagine Sports community.
Every Ohio State fan watches videos like,
and your guys is welcome. I didn't push the button one time. I didn't push that button one time.
Oh,
nope. Wolverines!
I
thought about it like 175 times, but I pushed it no times.
Yeah.
That was very benevolent.
I guess I'll see you guys in a couple weeks then.
Yep. Still with us in the video, we have a special Sim Santa edition with Dane. We're going off of the message boards. We're going to read off all your Santa Christmas diamond mine wishes with Dane. We're going to throw them at him, the most crazy, ridiculous ones and all the good ones, and some of the ones that, hey, Dane just might take your idea and incorporate it in the game. That's coming soon. So all you diamond miners out there, thanks again for watching another edition of the Kings Roundtable for DVD, The Ripper, the Michigan Wolverine, Baud Kenobi, and Tyler, I can see anything, Inzer. This is the Turnbuckle Bros once again saying, adios, muchachos.